Okay, so here's the section I could paint. So here, so watch what happens to the ties on the turnout. There's the flex track, right? So you don't want to cover it all in like, you know, you don't want to cover it in one pass. Like that's another mistake people make with airbrush. You know, they want to paint the model in one pass, right? You build up thin layers. And that's what you do with layers of paint. You let the looks, like you let them, like not, I'm not going to let this show through. It's going to be painted, but that's what you do. That's the, you know, the method, right? Is let layers, other layers work for you. Okay, so here's the difference. Watch. Thin, right? You shouldn't be able to cover it in the first pass. If you're covering your track, like your white, for example, like right, let me just pan this cumbersome camera over a bit. If you're covering in one pass, then your paint's too thick. It's as simple as that. I haven't finished putting in all the ties here for the sake of the video, but if you don't have an airbrush, you're hobbling yourself as a model railroader. It's just, I've heard the, you know, the argument, well, don't use an airbrush. Okay, well, too bad for you, right? Because you're just really limiting yourself. You can only do so much with a traditional paintbrush, especially if you want to get things done and you want a certain look and you want to get it done within the economy of time too, right? For those of you that are wondering what I use for ballast, this is just dirt from outside. The good Lord won't miss any of this, eh? I'm sure he won't mind. And you can see it works perfectly for this back 40 ballast application. I just love it. You know, and eventually grass will get worked in here, and then I'll come in with an airbrush, really thin earth, and blend things in and play around and have more fun. You know, this will, you know, I'm liking this. Like I was, like after yesterday, I was really pleased with this, like how this is at this stage. I'm really happy with the way it turned out, you know, so. Yeah, just good old dirt, right? I never liked commercial ballast, ever. Especially for HO and N, too. It's just too heavy. All right, it's just way too heavy as far as I go, so. This particular process is something that I do following track painting. Like when you do the basic brown, and in this case I used the airbrush, and then I picked out ties with subtle shades of brown and so on. Nothing fancy, whatever you desire. Like just 3 or 4 shades of brown will do it if you want to put that much time into it. But I really love going nuts on the track. As some of you know, there's something about the track that sort of makes up half the kind of immersive part of the railroad for me, you know, because you're always looking at the track, you know. Like I don't view my model railroad from this angle, but because I have fairly high bench work, but still, you know, like it gets photographed from this angle sometimes, and I also sometimes see it from this angle. And even when I view it from a more horizontal level, it still looks really good. So you can see like this section here is pretty much done for now at this phase. I mean, later on, once I do surrounding terrain, and you know, I can come in with an airbrush and cut in some grays and stuff like that at random, and grass and so on. But I want to get this brown effect here. And somebody had mentioned, you know, sometimes with matte medium it leaves a little bit of a residue. Well, I'll show you how I deal with that. Like I don't stress over that. Like people try to clean it, but no, don't try to clean it like a traditional way. Just cover it up, and I'll show you how I do it. So this turnout has dried overnight, and I used the matte medium, and the points just popped. Like, I just went like this, and they popped. And all the ballast is, it's hard, right? With no sticky points, right? There's a few touch-ups on the turnout, you know, that some paint got scraped when I was cleaning things, but that's easy to fix. But what I want to show you what I do is this is another added depth of color. Like, this is raw umber dry pigments. This just happens to be gambling. Like, I like this. I mean, this has lasted me for, I've had this for 25 years. You know, that's how long. You buy one of these and that's it, you know. Unless you have a massive railroad and you want to do this kind of thing, but you probably won't. But in the case of a small immersive shelf layout, I like to treat my track, you know, with as much detail and attentiveness as I do everything else. So I want to tone this down a bit. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to dip my brush in like this, and then I'm just going to brush it on like this. Okay. So this is raw umber, and it tends to have a little bit of a red sort of brown shade to it that I really like. And I do recommend that you just wear just a plain, like a mask, you know, like just a, you know, just a cheap mask or whatever, but just because the pigments tend to float around a bit. You probably don't want to breathe any of it in. So this is what I do, okay? And then once I work that in, see, this got kind of a little bit of a rusty look to it. And then once I work that in, I take a vacuum and I just vacuum that up. Okay, just the loose pigment. All right. And then I just take some water. This has just got a little bit of isopropyl alcohol. It's the same pre-soak that I use for ballast. And I just wet it down. And then I let it dry. And it ends up looking like this here. And I really like that, you know. And then, like I say, what I'll do near the end when I do the final tweaking, like, I don't know if you can see this very well on camera. I'll try to zoom in a bit more. You know, I'm pretty happy with that. Like, when you get green grass and growth growing in there, that's pretty good looking track, I'd say. You know, like branch line, kind of short line track. And I mean, I could overwork that too, or work in more, you know, like I might later, just with some grays and, you know, a few more faded ties, and that's pretty good, you know, like, you know, it really starts to make the track look more weathered in a way that, you know, I find track to look, you know, when I walk around, okay? So it's nice to have some dry, raw pigments in your paint kit as well, because they can do wonders, okay?